Mahalo.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to share time with Deputy Director Isla. My name is Scott Maurice, again, the Governor's Coordinator on Homelessness, and this is Pu'uhonua from the Department of Land and Natural Resources. She works in Chair Case's office. We know that there's been a lot of questions in the community about the Pu'uhonua o Wai'anae and the property where the village is currently located, so we wanted to provide some updates to the neighborhood board. One of my immediate bosses, Ford Fuchigami, who's the administrative director to the governor, did have a meeting with Twinkle and the leadership of the Pu'uhonua o Wai'anae last week. They did, Ford did take suggestions from the Pu'uhonua about how to best move forward. It's really been a question of trying to balance Department of Land and Natural Resources responsibility for managing state land and the cultural and environmental resources with the needs of the people who are residing there. What we wanted to share with the neighborhood board tonight is that DLNR does plan to bring an item before the Board of Land and Natural Resources on March 23rd. That agenda will become public on March 16th, which is when the agenda is posted. It is a public meeting, and the agenda on the DLNR, the item would specifically be relating to the closure of that property where the Pu'uhonua is located. Again, it's a public meeting. The public's allowed to come provide testimony and input to the Board of Land and Natural Resources. In addition, as I mentioned, we have met with Twinkle and the leadership in the camp. Ford met with them last week, and we are looking at a number of different options in order to try to find housing for the people there, including looking for available land. Our goal is to try and transition individuals from that property by early June. And again, we're looking at a variety of different options. If there's anything you want to add, Cora, that you think I missed. And then, of course, if the neighborhood board has any questions, we'd be happy to answer as best we can.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay.
I got a couple.
Okay. Okay, wait. Before, I know this is a really big issue. So besides asking it to keep civil, but I don't know it's going to get passionate, I want to remind everybody, we will be ending at 9:30 in respect to the parks because we encroach on their budget stuff. So this was something that was brought up to me before, and I tried to remind people, okay? So when you get up, I know you're going to be passionate, but please be concise and precise in whatever questions or concerns you may have, okay? Mahalo.
Hello, Scott. Hello. You're of the Hawaiiana. Why now? And like, why altogether? Can you kind of summarize why all of a sudden the state is taking this position?
So as you know, we've been working with the Pu'uhonua for about 2 years now. And I have always been clear that the goal for DLNR was to get people off because our responsibility is for the ponds. So but while we were doing that, Chair Case said we don't want to move everybody in the Pu'uhonua until we had some place to move them to, and we had a plan for the property. So we have a plan for the property, which is to eventually give it to the DOE so that they can add it, so it can become a maritime center for the whole community. And one of the things in getting that to work is to apply for a Fish and Wildlife Service grant. And there's a timeline on that, so we're trying to keep to that. Partly it's trying to keep to that timeline. The other part is that the city was starting to open their modular housing across the street. And so that was going to open up a whole bunch of stuff. We are finding it is harder to get into modular housing than we thought, and also that the people at the Pu'uhonua have told us that the preference is to get a piece of land. So we're looking at that. We're like Scott said, we're looking at all kinds of options because our goal is not to sweep it and everybody goes someplace.
Speak more into the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mahalo.
Our goal is not to sweep and everybody is dispersed, but actually to ensure that there's a transition. So we're working with Twinkle and her leadership on that transition.
Yeah, Thank you. But it just seems kind of rushed, like all of a sudden. I know I was part of some of those conversations, and at one point I was under the impression that we were working together towards a common goal. Now it kind of seems like you guys just ran with the ball. So I was just wondering why. Again, I know
We're still working on a
timeline.
piece of land for you guys, which is what you had always asked for.
Okay, and then, so what kind of timeline are you looking at exactly?
So, as I mentioned, the timeline right now includes going to the land board on March 23rd to ask them to look at eventual closure of the property. The actual closure of the property will likely not occur until early June. And the goal is to try and transition people to other options by early June. Part of the timeline that Department of Land and Natural Resources is working on is they in order for them to be consistent with their mission, which is really protecting the environmental and cultural resources, which is something they're tasked with in the state constitution, and Article 11.1 of the state constitution charges them with that very important task. They're under a timeline because of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Grant to have the property be clear of people and to be restored within a certain time frame. Again, the governor's office, Fort Fuchigami, who's the administrative director, which is a role that's very similar to the chief of staff, is working closely with us as well as closely with Twinkle and the leadership in the cabinet. Again, he met with them last week and he has plans to continue to meet with them moving forward. We're looking at all options on the table right now. We have not ruled any option out.
Okay, I'm going to insert something here. I know you folks came to do the announcement about going before the land board, right, which is going to be before our next meeting. We'll get through as much as we can tonight, but I am going to ask you folks to come back for a formal presentation next month. Because our community should have known ahead of time, so more of them could have come, and we would have more time to address this. The other thing is, if you have come tonight and not have signed in, please definitely sign in on the sign-in sheet. But please be aware, I am going to ask folks to come back next month.
No, yes, we have every intention to continue to keep the neighborhood board updated. The meeting that Administrative Director Fujigami had with Twinkle occurred just last week, Wednesday, and as a follow-up to that meeting, because he did want to talk to Twinkle and the leadership of the Pu'uhonua first, it was agreed, I believe it was agreed upon then, and he shared with them that we were planning to come to the neighborhood board this evening. I think he shared it. I'm not sure if there's 100% agreement on that, but we did say that one of the things we wanted to do was to keep the community informed because we know this is an important issue to the community.
I don't think it was on the agenda, and I think had it been on the agenda, we would have had a lot more community members involved. So
No,
if you could please just make sure that it gets to the right people,
Yes.
so that it's on the agenda, so that our people know
Yes.
you're going to be here, so that we
Yes.
can voice our opinions properly.
No, I understand.
Thank you.
We were not asked to, we're not aware that we would come to the meeting until last week, Wednesday, late in the afternoon, and by that time, it was already past the deadline for the item to be on the agenda according to our understanding. So again, we asked Deputy Director Ayla, could we have a portion of his time to provide the update, and we are, we're willing to work with you to come to the next meeting and so we can have more of a full discussion.
Yes. Okay, good. I'm glad you be prepped for that. I'm going to go back to the board again, and then I just want us to make sure we save time for our community to engage, okay? So, Mr. Koike, and then we'll come back to you.
I want to personally thank you both for being here. I know it takes a lot of courage to stand before our community and deliver the kind of news you just did. I don't know how to explain how upset I am right now over what you're trying to express. That you're trying to protect the cultural and natural resources, yet you're missing the people who are the culture. So, forgive me, as much as we want to all preserve the Hopaula, playing human whack-a-mole and sending the people out of that community again without first having, because we've met over 2 years. And yet, throughout all this time, have not found a suitable place. What makes you think we're going to find some place before June, early June, in the next 2.5 months? Do you have anything substantial to report on that? No. Or are you just blowing more sunshine?
So again, as I mentioned, we're looking at every piece of land on the leeward coast.
We've been looking at every piece of land, Scott. You and I both know we've examined every single parcel. So again, you're not saying anything different, except now that we are being forced into a situation, unprepared. This just seems totally shady. The whole thing, especially this being an election year, seems really bad timing. I mean, the press that this is gonna garner, especially the reaction from our community, does he want to sink his campaign? Does he want to go down as the person who declares the year of the Hawaiian and then displaces the Hawaiian from our home? Is that really the message he's trying to send? Beg you to please go back and talk to him. Talk to Ford, please. Because the intent of what is being said, okay, the words that's coming across and hitting my ears, and then the meaning of what's actually, get people here. Okay, it's not you that will lose your home, that's why. Yeah? It's not you. That's why.
I know you have
Thank
some
you
very
for
real
coming.
concerns with.
But please take this message back. Please. Because we're not happy. I'm not happy. This just seems a lot of smoke and mirror. Yeah? It's not sincere. The words don't match the action. It's not pono. Wera aloha in all of this. I'm sorry, but we're going to hold you to a higher standard because this is Wai'anae. It's not Honolulu.
Mahalo, Mr. Koike.
So thank you for sharing your concerns, and we will bring this back to the governor and to Administrative Director Fuchigami to Ford.
I think you might just get a whole list of questions and concerns, so you might just want to write them down and let them come up. Okay, we'll go back to the board. Please, 1 to 2 minutes so we can get as many people to the microphone as possible. And we'll, Mr. No, anybody else? Okay, I'm going to move out to the community if we're kind of okay with the board right now. Okay, so community members, please line up, state your name, and speak into the microphone. Mahalo, Ms. Jordan.
Thank you very much, board members. My name is Jill Jordan. I'm a community member of this community for minimum 45 years. Former board member of 12 years, former legislator of 6 years. And I'm going to talk about the transparency, not on your part, unfortunately on the state's part. You know, I waited for this agenda and it wasn't posted publicly until Thursday. I went to the website Wednesday evening on the 30th, and it wasn't posted yet. I found out that it was posted sometimes on Thursday last week. And from that time till right now, I do not see, you know, 2 representatives from the state to come and talk about this very important issue in our community that's been going on for a minimum of 10 years. And that is not transparency, unfortunately. And I think our community does deserve that transparency. I look forward to you guys coming back in April to have a full presentation before the board and allowing all our community members to hear. I am grateful for the individuals that did come through the coconut wireless or the kahea that was put out. But it's still not a viable conversation in my book because it was not duly noted on a sunshine agenda. And we all should be cognizant of that. Thank you, Chair Ford. We need to be reminded, as well as we need to remind our government agencies on how the process works. So I hope we all keep that in mind as we move forward in this discussion, and please allow those individuals on whatever side they sit on to have that opportunity to know it was noted on a public meeting notice. Thank you, Chair.
Mahalo.
get one written thing. So I'm gonna go off script, you know how I usually go. Okay. Despite saying it wants to talk and saying it has no plans for a sweep, the state continues to take steps to enable a sweep of Pu'uhonua Wai'anae, including seeking neighborhood board approval, BOE approval, and BLNR approval, all in this month. We've asked the state for information, and I'm going to use some information that I know here because I was part of that meeting. We've asked the state for information on a grant proposal that is supposedly driving their timeline, but have not shared it with us. Pu'uhonua Wai'anae has asked the state to stop taking steps to enable a sweep until a mutually agreeable timeline can be developed for the people of the village to transition. We asked them not to do this tonight, but they went ahead anyways. The state keeps taking steps to enable a sweep anyways, and given their refusal to be transparent and the effort to push this forward quickly without allowing for full public discussion, we think it is possible that the timeline is driven by the upcoming primary election and not any federal grant requirements. We ask that the neighborhood board defer any decision on the state's plan until a relocation time for the village can be agreed upon by both Pu'uhonua and the state. So we have some questions. One just came up already, was why is this item not published on a meeting agenda in order to give the public notice that it will be discussed? I was in that meeting. They came in and told us that they're going to do this today. They knew before that meeting that they was coming to do this today. I just letting you guys know. Two is, why not delay your steps to enable a sweep until May in order to allow talks between the state and Pu'uhonua Wai'anae to proceed? How long has this plan been in development? And why was the plan never shared with the people of the village? I remember hearing last year sometime and reading in one of the school's newsletters or something about this surprise visit by Governor Ige into the high school. And apparently that's when the talk started talking about, shifting over. And apparently they hatched this plan. So if it was from last year, how come only now we're hearing about them? What is the name of the federal grant program with whatever wildlife that they're doing, that they're applying for? When is the application due date? Has the state applied for this grant in the past and been denied? And if so, how many times? Do you know how many other states or projects are applying for this competitive grant, if it's a competitive grant? Has someone from the federal grant program told you that the land must be cleared before the grant application is even submitted? And if so, can you provide the name of the contact info of that federal staff person so we can verify? Have the DOE and BOE already approved the grant plan? And within the past 15 years, how many private development projects has DLNR approved that destroyed known Opai'ulo habitats over the objections of the community? I know that was kind of planning questions, so you guys no lose them. Oh, okay, Raja. So that's you guys' questions. Oh, yeah, okay, I'll give them to you guys. But this is my attempt to not do like I usually do.
Lisa Keller. My name is Lokenani Lono, and many a times Opai'ulo came up. Yeah, I lived there for 8 years, and this gentleman once told me when I first moved in there, told me, "Hana ino do Opai'ulo, you guys out in 5 minutes." That 8 years, I took on that kuleana personally. Only because of the fact that there was many other lives other than my keikis that was living there, that it would affect them. We had no place to go. I gave up my home in 2010 because my husband and I couldn't afford it no more. My house went on foreclosure, and there was over 200 other houses that went on foreclosure that same year. A lot of us in construction, we lost. I sat on the bench for almost nearly a year in the carpenter's world. And I was a carpenter, I'm a gentleman. And the whole thing about it was, you get comfortable after a while, then you forget, that we take it for gratitude. And, so When I took on the kuleana on the Opai Ula, I knew nothing of it. But I tried, and I picked up here and there people telling me what was needed to be done. We do not hurt the habitat. We thrive the habitat. We bring in experts such as Auntie Helani Chang, and she is a retired biologist for UH Manoa. And she came and she said, we were doing great. We didn't destroy the land around it. With all the traffic of the people that walking through, there was no destroying of the land. And we took care of that. We took care of that kuleana. Whatever that didn't belong inside there, that blew in there, our people took it out with tongs. Yeah? So they didn't hurt the habitat that's around it. And because the Opai became my ohana, you know, DLNR never came in. I started to see the UH aquatic students used to come in when I first moved there. They would come every 3 months. Then they would come every 6 months. Then we no longer seen them come in. I assume they lost funding. So yeah, everybody lose funding in the thing. But then there was nobody that came around. We asked for help the last time they came. But they never like help. Because why? Because of a homeless community. So they were afraid, whomever was we asked to come out. So we sought our own mana'o from other people that have their mana'o to share with us. And we took care and it thrives. But today, we have no vai that comes down from Kamaidi Ridge, none at all. And we need that vai in order for it to mix with the kai to make that brackish water, to make that opai flourish. And there's nothing. Right now today, I bought students came in today from different parts of the world and took them in to go see. They didn't nothing, no one no water. But you know one thing about the opai, as she hibernates, she goes sleep until the right elements hits her. Just like one sponge, she come right back and she forever keep on doing this. But I don't understand. They keep telling us that that's their kuleana, but not one of them came in the last 8 years. We took care of that. So what better people to take care of a rare species, but the rare people that's around it? Yeah? And we do that. Yeah. Mahalo. Mahalo. Yeah, I know that other people have questions. I have one an important question for you folks. This BLNR meeting, are you locked in for March, or is it possible to push it back? Because this is my concern, right? This is the community that the Pu'uhonua is in, but you haven't come over here to present. What I'd like to see if it's possible for you folks to push that BLNR time back. I know maybe it takes some effort to arrange it or schedule it, but you should come to our community and present before that. There's some challenges to that for you folks. I know it's going to be hard, but is that a possibility?
That is a possibility. I would have to take that back. I don't know the answer. That's not a decision I can make.
If it's a possibility, I'd like to ask you folks to please explore that, because this is very rushed. We only have 15 minutes left of this meeting time. And I asked you folks to come back in April, but this BLNR meeting is going to bring impact, right?
And that's why we needed to come to this meeting, because
yeah,
and
but
it wasn't a planning thing. I mean, we didn't do it on purpose. It was just a timing issue.
So, I mean, that is my ask right now. Is it something you can take back? And for one, is my board, you know, does that sound good from my board and then the community as well? Because we are still in the community portion where you ask questions.
You can certainly ask the question. I can take it back, but I can't answer your question tonight.
So we'll continue to get through as much as we can, but that is the risk with whether she gets a yes or a no on that.
Mahalo, board members. Whatever the issue is or whatever you guys got to do, you got to do. However, you folks don't live in this community. 10 years ago, there were people living in there, not taking care. We would come here for barbecues, and all the kids that are killing each other down in Makua were over here playing hide and seek with not enough HPD. So my question to you folks to think about is maybe you need a personal, and this is personal, environmental impact statement when you take this number of people. It's like dropping the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. So you choose to annihilate a cultural village. This is not just about homeless folks. We're talking about people that are trying to work within two different systems and have demonstrated that it's possible. My question to you is, do you have enough DLNR officers so that when these folks leave, what you gonna do over there? The rest of the guys gonna come in and burn the damn Kiavi down because that's what they do in Makua. You guys gonna come and protect the rest of the community? All those guys that is in Pokai Bay now, they coming over there because get more space. And it's already cleared. You think I'm lying? This is what happens when things get displaced. So just assume that our community gets taken away. There's an economic impact to the rest of us who shop in Wai'anae store and Tamura. Because when they lose a huge volume all of a sudden, just like business, gotta raise the price. And what makes you think, with the 500 people that just happened to come the other week, that you're not gonna have 2,000 people to come and support this community? Do you have the plans for that so that there's safety for everybody? That's what we don't wanna see. And this is not a good demonstration. Not only that, we work with the DLNR on pig hunting. We have big community meeting, everybody pono, and then the next thing you know, oh memo, whatever people said, oh don't count. Even when a representative chaired that meeting. So guys, there needs to be some creative cultural humility here. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Kati. Mr. Riley?
Back again. I am calling BS, okay? Number one, we need to learn to live in the solution and not the problem. We've identified the problem, so we have to now live in the solution. Twinkle has set up a situation that the United States government and other states are patterning after. She has done something remarkable. I have been fighting on social media on her behalf for 2 years now. Before I purchased my property in walking distance to this camp, I knew all about it. It doesn't bother me. I feel safe walking in my neighborhood because of what this community has done. And it is a shining example of what we have to offer. This is what being Hawaiian truly is. Taking care of our aina, living pono, and showing true aloha to everyone. And that is what this community is. So we must now, since we've identified the problem, live in the solution. One thing this state does beautiful. We are #1 in the United States in recycling. We have so many places that are throwing away pallets that are good resources to be able to create sustainable living for people. I look at this board, I look at this audience, and I know we can get together some nails and go recycle, reuse, repurpose these pallets. We can get the state government to give us some property, and we can fashion our own homes for these people. These are not homeless people, these are houseless people. There's a major difference. So it is up to us, it is up to you to stand up and fight for us now and make sure that we can take care of these people. These are our ohana. No one forgotten, no one left behind. Lilo and Stitch got it right, now we can get it right. Thank you.
Will you please step up to the mic, state your name, please?
Aloha, my name is Christopher Kealoha Oleakana, and I live in Makaha. I have 2 questions. First part is I'm currently a teacher at Wai'anae High School, and so the first question is, when were these discussions made with the Board of Education or the Department of Education? Because it was shared with teachers at an earlier faculty meeting, plans to take over the property, and that was contingent upon a commercialism bill being passed. Nothing was mentioned about a grant. And then the second question is, why this particular Opai'ula population? This Opai'ula population is an endangered rare species throughout the world, however, not for Hawaii. There's actually different Opai'ula populations across the island, and especially on the island of Hawaii, there's a large number of Opai'ula populations, so why this particular Opai'ula population? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
Mahalo, second. Go ahead.
Are you guys gonna answer?
So we know that there have been discussions between DLNR and the superintendent, complex area superintendent, and the Wai'anae High School principal as recently as I think about a month ago. We will take the other questions back to the governor and again to Administrative Director Fujigami to forward, and we can follow up when we present at the next Wai'anae Neighborhood Board meeting.
I think he was asking how, like when it first started the discussions with the high school.
So I'm not sure about that because that was a DAR initiative. So it was a different place than I work, and then they brought it kind of to us.
We're basically the ones that are tasked with communicating to the neighborhood board, but we have to go back and talk to the appropriate people within state administration. We know the discussions about the use of the property by the DOE was something, as Paul was mentioning, a discussion between the DAR administrator, Bruce Anderson, and DOE. And we can go back and we'll see if we can get more information. And again, those are questions you can also ask at the March 23rd land board meeting.
Well, I'm hoping that might change, but definitely whatever questions and concerns get stated here, if you can please bring those back for next month. Anything else in the community, please? Mr. DeFeo.
Having just been brought up to date with this issue, the lack of transparency that is so blatantly obvious with what's happening to that village there, believe it or not, is a public relations disaster and nightmare. What could you have possibly been thinking? Especially at being this is an election year. So what could possibly be the agenda? Who could benefit by this lack of transparency? And evidently, you're listening to the wrong people. And those wrong people are part of why the quality of life is getting harder and harder to maintain. Because it's getting to the point where money talks, and the rest of us that have to work for a living have to struggle. Those on top succeed at the expense of the many at the bottom. And this is Hawaii, the Aloha state, and you think what you're doing is going to fly without an uproar, and especially in this community? Please report back to your superiors that there needs to be an opportunity where cool, calm heads can gather and sit at a table and come up with humane and justifiable solutions. Lives are at stake. Parents, children, mothers, fathers, take take that into consideration. And I have said this repeatedly, and I will never stop saying it to you and everybody here. If you don't get your heart in alignment with your brain, nothing good will ever happen. The future that you envision will be a nightmare. Use your heart. Be guided by your conscience. And never forget your roots. This is Hawaii. Stop acting like we're in the mainland.
Mahalo sa Tefeo.
Can I say
Okay.
Um,
We'll go.
I would just like to recommend that you guys get on the Pu'uhonua Wai'anae Facebook page to get updated on what's happening, with current events and stuff. I don't know, what's going to happen if they just decide they're going to sweep like suddenly. I mean, that's kind of what it sounds like might happen. So stay updated, and if they do, I think we should just show up at the harbor and stop them. Like, we'll stand in your way. You're not going to do it, okay? And I'll tell you what, if you initiate force against Wai'anae, that's not going to go well, okay? You do not want to initiate force against our community. No sweep without their consent.
Kelly. Mr. Paolo.
So before your meeting on the 23rd with the BLNR, I think it's appropriate we call for a special meeting to kind of recap everything and get everything out there, like a mini town hall. Would that be something that you folks would entertain?
Well, we can take this back to the governor and to Ford, to Administrative Director Fujigami, and we can get
If
back
you
to
could
you
please
before.
do that, because we have enough time to make sunshine law, so there's this transparency and our community can attend. I would strongly ask you folks to attend, and it's, the presentation you're planning for April, which is going to be after the fact, do it at our special meeting and give our community time in there. I think one of the other things too is, I'm not going to go there right now, but so we want to do it, we'll set that up.
Yeah,
Okay.
but if you could, just don't take that as getting off the hook about looking into a future date for that meeting. If you could still look into that immediately and CC the board on whatever the outcome of that ask is, we'd really appreciate that.
Again, we'll bring all the questions and concerns raised tonight back to Ford, and we understand the concerns the neighborhood board is raising, and we'll bring them to Ford and others in the governor's office.
Thank you.
I was speaking before as an individual in the community. However, as a professional, I understand that with state lands, there should be an environmental assessment, and that's not happened. So we need to have the environmental assessment, we need to have a plan, and we need to have a management plan with the solutions. So if we're going to act like adults and act like professionals, I believe that should be added to the agenda of what was just said. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Tati. Kapahu.
Yes, I just want to make a comment off of my colleague here, Kellen. If this does go as you folks are planning, just be prepared. The resistance of this community. Because this gonna tear our community out, big time. So just letting you folks know on that, because if that happens, I'll be there.
I second that.
Okay, Mahalo, were any other questions or concerns you want Scott or Paul to take back? Okay, so we are at 9:30. I'm going to apologize to our representatives. I'm very sorry that we did not get to you folks.
Sorry, Jenny.
Yeah.
Love you.